Good morning, everyone. We're continuing here in the words of the RAMBAM Hilchos Avodah Zarah, Perek Aleph, and we're in Halacha Aleph, and we have to give a little bit of a hashkafic background over here to understand, as the Rambam is pointing out, that the generation of Enosh, and including Enosh, the grandson of Adam Arishon, they made a mistake where they began changing the rules of Avodas Hashem. Instead of just worshipping the Ribbono Shel Olam and praising only Hashem and nothing else in this world, they came up with this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would like them to honor His seeming ministers of the world, the constellations, the stars, the moon, and the sun that were up there in Shemayim together with Him. And says the Rambam, that itself is Avodah Zarah, strange worship, not the worship of Hashem that He intended. And they still believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they were beginning to shift into another world, as we will see how bad it's going to get. Now, what would motivate Enosh and his generation to make this mistake? In the world of the Balei Musar, we understand from the Balei Musar that when you peel away the layers of a person and you get down to the core of who they are, then you understand that every decision that they make is based on negiyos, it's based on their personal bias and their subjective view and perspective of that which is going on. When you see a person get angry at somebody else, so if that person really wants to understand the root of his anger, he has to go peel away all of his layers, not the situation at hand, why he says he got angry, but rather see what's the nature of this person. Why is this meed of kas? Why is his anger expressing itself right now? So too, if for 3 generations everything was crystal clear in the way that you're supposed to serve Hashem, from Adam to his children and now to his grandchild, so what would be the motivating force? What would cause that Enosh and his generation would switch up the rules over here, change the way to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and trample and end up in the world of Avodah Zarah, as the Rambam says? What was bothering them that they made such changes? So the Nefesh HaChaim explains the following. And he says, let's think about what was going on in the world at this time. You had Adam Arishon was born. He was the most precious of the creations of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created him last. He was Yitzir Kapov. He was the handiwork directly of Hashem. His neshama was gigantic. The Malachim, the angels in Shemayim, they thought he was Elohim. They thought he was God Himself. And they were praising and bowing down to Him. His world was a world of complete goodness. He only saw the emes. He only saw the truth. Evil was far away from him. He was supposed to live a life that, if he would have survived that first Shabbos of his life, he was born on Erev Shabbos, then it could very well be that Mashiach, perfection of the world, would have come already at that time, would have been a different place. So if that's the case, what was motivating his grandson to change things around? Says the Nefesh HaChaim, what was the very tenuous relationship that Adam had with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? We see that Adam makes a mistake. He eats from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ayeka, where are you, Adam Arishon? And he forces him to admit to his mistake. And the punishment is banished from Gan Eden. You're going to have to eat by the sweat of your brow. His wife is going to have tremendous pains during labor, really Gehenna on earth. And they will no longer be able to be in Gan Eden. And they're going to have to start living a quote-unquote more regular kind of a life without all the brachas and all of the ruchnias and all the kedusha that existed in Gan Eden. Which means that the generations that followed Adam Arishon, they saw it's not easy to be an Eved Hashem. You're always under the watchful eye and the glance of the Ribbono Shel Olam. Everywhere you go, everything that you see, everything that you do, everything you say, and they assume that everything that you think, which is true, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is well aware of, and He's going to get you when you do the wrong thing. So they said to themselves, why would we want to live such a life of this foreboding nature of HaKadosh Baruch Hu watching over us every single step of the way? Maybe we could create a little bit of a distance in our relationship with Hashem, where He won't see and watch and know literally everything that we're doing. And so they began to create a cushion of space in their mind by worshiping and by praising the sun and the moon and the stars, by making that there's ministers between them and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which makes it that there's a distance that never existed before. Perhaps if there's going to be a distance between us and Hashem, that would mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu won't be able to see everything that we're doing. He won't know about everything, He won't hear about everything, He won't see everything, He won't have all of His wires hooked up to our brain to know what the brain activity is, what we're thinking, so on and so forth, and therefore we'll live a less threatening lifestyle where we have to be worried and concerned about everything that we do wrong. Hashem is going to zap us with His punishment just like He did to Adam HaRishon. And therefore they came up with this idea, this plan of changing and shifting the world of Avodas Hashem, whether subconsciously or consciously, in order to create a cushion of distance between them and Hashem. However, says the Rambam, that was a very big mistake, because that itself is nothing less than true Avodah Zarah. We have so much more to speak about in these opening lines of the Rambam. Im Yetz Hashem will continue tomorrow.